We all know the internet extends around the world, but how does it do that? How are you talking to your grandmother in India or browsing the Guardian news site in London? A lot of people think it's through satellites, but the truth is, satellites like Starlink have limited bandwidth and only carry about 1% of internet traffic. The rest is carried through a network of undersea cables that are subject to dropped anchors, earthquakes, sabotage, and even shark bites. Hi, my name is Bill, and in this episode, I'll tell you how the invisible world of undersea cables evolved. Welcome to Tone and Light. It was the desire to extend telegraph messages across the ocean in the 19th century that prompted the idea of a transatlantic cable. At that time, it took 2 weeks or more to send a message by ship across the sea. A retired New York paper manufacturer named Cyrus West Field decided to do something about it. With no technical background himself, he enlisted Edward Orange Wildman Whitehouse as the project's chief electrician. Wildman was actually a surgeon by profession, but also had a reputation as an electrical experimenter. The first attempt to lay a copper cable failed. It just broke. But they were able to retrieve it, patch it, and work through some other failures to finally connect it between Newfoundland, Canada, and the southwest coast of Ireland. On August 7th, 1858, Queen Victoria and President James Buchanan exchanged telegraph greetings, but the signal was so weak it took 16 and a half hours to send a message in one direction. Wildman Whitehouse tried to improve the signal by increasing the voltage. In doing so, he destroyed the insulation and the cable stopped working altogether. Undeterred, Cyrus Field raised more money, and after a couple more failures, in 1866 his company finally laid a cable that worked with improved materials, and delivering messages went from 2 weeks to 2 minutes. The first transatlantic telephone cable, TAT-1, was laid in 1956. It could only carry 36 simultaneous calls. AT&T's Bell Labs was able to double the capacity by using a technology called time-assigned speech interpolation, or TASI. TASI takes advantage of the natural gaps in human speech. Engineers found that in a typical conversation, a person speaks only 40% of the time. The rest is pauses, listening, or thinking about what to say next. So instead of dedicating an end-to-end circuit to a single call, the circuits are pooled, and a switch looks for a line that is momentarily silent. In milliseconds, it quickly switches an active call to that line. A decoder keeps track of who's talking to whom. By doing this, AT&T was able to double the number of callers using the same number of circuits. As new technology, semiconductors, and transistors were developed, the number of simultaneous calls steadily increased as well. 80 grew to 138, then 4,000, then 40,000. Today, analog calls are digitized into packets, turning them into data that gets converted back to analog at the receiving end. But that's a topic for another episode. The newer fiber optic cables used today and laid by companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft carry up to hundreds of terabytes per second of both digitized voice and data. That's equivalent to over 1 billion simultaneous phone calls or tens of millions of simultaneous high-definition video streams. Fiber optic cables are relatively small, only about the size of a soda bottle cap in diameter. Most of that is protective sheathing. Inside are hair-thin fiber strands that transmit information using pulses of light. Since the light signals fade over long distances, optical repeaters are placed every 60 to 100 kilometers, that's every 37 to 62 miles. The repeaters are powered using 15,000 volts of DC current using a copper conductor running through the middle of the cable. These cables run as much as 8,000 meters deep. That's nearly as deep as Mount Everest is tall. At these depths, the equipment must withstand crushing pressures exceeding 800 to 1,000 atmospheres. Despite the protective sheathing, cables can still be vulnerable. Most accidents are due to fishing trawlers dragging nets and ships dropping and dragging their anchors. A small number of accidents are natural due to abrasion, earthquakes, whale entanglements, and even shark bites. And of course, there is intentional sabotage. In World War I, the British cut 5 German undersea cables in the English Channel. This forced the Germans to rely on wireless radio, which was easily intercepted. As recently as 2024, Houthi rebels were linked to the severing of 3 undersea cables, disrupting a quarter of the internet traffic between Europe and Asia. Not just sabotage, undersea cables have been the focus of espionage and surveillance. In 1971, the U.S. Navy tapped a Soviet military copper cable using a specialized induction device, allowing them to monitor traffic without having to pierce the cable. Unencrypted intelligence was collected for years until an NSA analyst named Ronald Pelton betrayed the mission to the Soviets in 1980. Today, there are concerns over the cable networks being built by Chinese-backed companies like HMN Technologies, and the possibility of backdoors allowing Beijing to monitor data or implement kill switches. Russian naval vessels have been spotted near important cable routes, possibly mapping their locations and/or preparing to cut or tap cables. And it has been found that the U.S. and British intelligence agencies have tapped fiber optic cables at landing stations and processing centers to monitor global internet traffic. As of June 2024, more than 600 active and planned undersea cables spanned approximately 1.4 million kilometers. End to end, that would circle the Earth 35 times. That's a lot of cable to protect. NATO has launched a program called the Baltic Sentry Initiative, and the Maritime Center for the Security of Critical Undersea Infrastructure is facilitating the public-private cooperation needed for monitoring this underwater network. Work is also being done to create protocols that would automatically reroute essential internet traffic to satellites if a cable is cut. Perhaps the next time you make an international phone call or visit a website in another part of the world, you can imagine your communications traveling beneath the ocean, thousands of meters deep, under immense pressure, and possibly in hostile waters. Remarkably, your interchange most likely goes without a hitch, thanks to the invisible network below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share. Stay curious, and I'll join you in the next episode of Tone and Light.